Hi, very good morning. I am Dr. Janak Patel, MD General Physician. Today we'll be discussing on the second congenital heart disease, which is a cyanotic group we call ventricular septal defect. Meaning is very simple. It is a defect in a interventricular septum that we call as a ventricular septal defect. And because of that particular defect, LV pressure is more than RV pressure. So blood will flow from LV to RV. That's why it is also called as left to right shunt or acyanotic congenital heart disease. So it belongs to this particular. So in that there will be LVH. Also there will be an increased volume overload on RV. So that will also give rise to what we call as a little amount of RVH also. There will be BVH depending upon the size of the shunt. So ventricular septal defect is an abnormal opening in an interventricular septum which allows the blood to flow from LV to RV. Now this is the most common congenital heart disease among all total congenital heart disease. It is accounting for nearly 25 to as much as 50% of congenital heart disease. Not among acyanotic but total congenital heart disease group. Now there are different terms which are utilized. One, congenital and acquired. What we are going to discuss at present is a congenital. Among acquired, in person who develops an anteroseptal infarct, particularly because of occlusion of a LAD, it will produce an infarction, necrosis of an interventricular septum, and that can rupture and can produce acquired acute ventricular septal defect. Very rarely while doing a catheterization you can have a perforation and can produce acquired ventricular septal defect, and another one while doing pericardiocentesis also you can have a traumatic injury to interventricular septum, or you can have a penetrating injury like bullet injury, stab wound injury to interventricular septum and can end with a ventricular septal defect. In a congenital variety they are divided into two big groups. One we call as a small defect, which is very commonly in a muscular portion, and second we call it usually medium to large size defect. Small defect is also given a name called Rogers defect. Site wise they are divided into 5 groups. Type 1 is usually called as an infundibular or subarterial or supracrystal or called conal. The most common word utilized is infundibular, means which is close to opening of pulmonary artery and aorta. Type 2 variety is membranous variety or we call paramembranous variety. Type 3 is an inlet or what we will call as a AV canal defects. And type 4 is what is present in a muscular variety. So these are the 4 groups. Depending upon the site they are given. And depending upon the size, small, Rogers, medium and large size. And according to etiology, congenital and acquired. It is the most common congenital heart disease, accounting for nearly 25 to 50% of the cases. We have already mentioned subpulmonic, perimembranous, inlet and muscular VSD. There are different other terms also being utilized by different person. Here it is AV canal, muscular, conoventricular or canal defects. This divides only into 3: perimembranous, muscular and juxta-arterial. So depending upon which classification you are using accordingly. By and large they utilize this, that is grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. This is hemodynamic classification. Depending upon the size etc. you will have a different gradings producing a hemodynamic changes. In grade 1, there is hardly any ventricular hypertrophy. The pulmonary and systolic pressure, main pulmonary systolic pressure is normal. Oxygen saturation is normal. And arterial blood flow to the systemic blood flow is less than 1.5%. Grade 2, you will start getting LVH. Pulmonary pressure will start rising. It will become between 30 to 60. Oxygen concentration still remains normal. And blood flow ratio, artery to systemic blood flow, that will be 1.5 to 2.5. In grade 3, LVH will be there still. Now cyanosis on exertion will be there. So person will start developing decreased arterial saturation on exercise, and the pressure in a pulmonary artery will start rising more than 60 millimeter, means we call more than systemic pressure. So that will be a starting point where now reversal will start, and the ratio is 2.5. Once the RV pressure starts rising and there is an RVH, now you will have a pressure almost systemic or higher than systemic. Cyanosis will be persistent, there will be reversal of the shunt, and now ratio will again fall back to less than 1.5. So this will be the dangerous stage we call Eisenmenger. So this is another classification which is commonly being utilized: small size, moderate size, or severe size. Small size, diameter wise less than 5 millimeter, or it is also called as mild or Rogers defect or a small size defect. If you calculate the area, less than 0.5 square centimeter, moderate size 0.5 to 1.5, and diameter wise 5 millimeter to maximum 15 millimeter, and more than 15 millimeter is called severe, and the square area wise it is more than, this should be bigger one, this should be almost, I say, more than 1.5 size wise. So here the shunt is small, this is medium, there is a large quantity of a blood which is flowing. Pulmonary vessels will be more affected in a large size, and it will lead to pulmonary hypertension and reversal of the shunt, very common. While here these are usually asymptomatic groups, while this will be mild symptoms. We have already told you the maximum variety is usually perimembranous variety, or we also call it a conoventricular variety. Perimembranous variety is close to the what we call as a valvular structures. Muscular variety is only 20%, second common, which is more here. Acquired variety is very frequently in the muscular portion, secondary due to acute myocardial infarction, particularly anteroseptal infarcts. While inlet variety or endocardial cushion defects and isolated VSD, which is infundibular variety, which is accounting for 5%. So these two are less common. The most common is perimembranous variety. Perimembranous variety. This is a perimembranous variety. This is muscular variety, and this is supracrystal. Supracrystal. Supracrystal is what we call as isolated or infundibular, which is close to the infundibulum. So that is called supracrystal. Then you come across perimembranous and muscular variety. So that will be there. And if you get because of an endocardial cushion defect, that is called peri-inlet or AV canal or AV septum, atrioventricular septum. So majority of them which are membranous variety, you come across in 80% of the groups, and muscular is second common, which is accounting for 5 to 20%. While supracrystal close to the infundibulum or also called as the infundibulum, and other is ventricular septal defects group. So same thing what we have mentioned before, membranous is most common. So now etiology wise we divide into two big groups. One, congenital. And the commonest cause of congenital, which is also there in ASD, is Down syndrome. We call trisomy 21. Or it may be because of secondary due to radiation or teratogenic drugs or chemicals during pregnancy, consumption of those. It is one of the factor which is associated with Fallot tetralogy, one of the factor. In pentology also it is associated with ASD. Or you can have a pure pulmonary stenosis with only VSD, no overriding of aorta. These are some of the congenital groups. While among acquired groups, we have already mentioned acute MI, anteroseptal variety, which is because of a left anterior descending branch, and that can produce rupture of interventricular septum and acute VSD, leading to acute congestive heart failure. You can have a traumatic injury to interventricular septum during catheterization, bullet injury, step bone injury, pericardiocentesis, or during pacing, quite common. So that will result into perforation of interventricular septum and can result into one of the common acquired groups. But more common is acute MI rather than other traumatic injuries. But among traumatic injury, catheterization, pericardiocentesis, pacing comes most common. Trisomy 21 will be accounting for 40% of the ventricular septal defect, while trisomy 13, 18 will be accounting for 18 to 31%. Tetralogy of Fallot is the most common anomaly which will be associated with ventricular septal defect with overriding of aorta, infundibular pulmonary stenosis, and right ventricular hypertrophy. Holt-Oram syndrome, that is called hand-heart syndrome, also is one of the common cause. You can have other variety called as a charge, water, Cornella de Lange syndromes. If a mother is on a sodium valproate, phenytoin, sodium, type 1 diabetes, which is uncontrolled variety, can also lead to ventricular septal defects. Recurrence rate of VSD is very common with a strong family history. So these are all congenital conditions. Isolated VSD is most commonly recognized in a congenital heart disease. It is accounting for almost, we have already told you that more than 20 to 50% of all congenital heart disease, almost 50% of those. By and large, 80% of small VSD, or we call muscular defect, will close on its own. We call spontaneous closure. 10 to 15% of the large VSD can also close spontaneously if they are muscular variety. 60% of the defect will close quite early. Along with VSD, you can have a left heart disease like aortic stenosis, coarctation of aorta. In a Fallot's tetralogy, it will be a right heart disease because there will be overriding of aorta, RVH. Or you can have sometime double outlet right ventricle, short form we call DORV. It can be also one part of truncus arteriosus because blood cannot flow into trunk unless there is a VSD. Very rarely you come across VSD because of a single ventricle where there is a tricuspid atresia, double inlet, left ventricle, etc. So these are some of the associated congenital defect which can be there with VSD. By and large, the isolated VSD is more common. VSD will be also common with atrioventricular septal defect where you will have a ASD as well as VSD together. It can be complete, partial or intermittent variety where you will have a ASD plus VSD and you can have a atrioventricular valve defects. It is quite common in Down syndrome. Almost 40% of the time Down syndrome is a common cause of atrioventricular septal defects. So In a complete atrioventricular septal defect, you will have a septum primum defect with mitral valve defects and VSD. So all those things, three things will be together, and it is very common in Down syndrome. Now, if we come to the pathophysiology, it is very easy to understand. Because of ventricular septal defect, LV pressure is more, so blood will flow from LV to RV during systole. That's why oxygenated blood will come to deoxy slide. This will produce volume overload on RV. So there will be increased blood flow into RV, from RV into pulmonary artery. So you will have a pulmonary congestion. Pulmonary vascular marking will be increased. There will be increased pulmonary resistance, recurrent respiratory tract infections, leading to fibrosis and increased pulmonary pressure. Because of increased pulmonary pressure, now right ventricular pressure will be elevated. Secondary to right ventricular pressure elevation, now you will have a dilatation plus hypertrophy. Dilatation is because of volume overload, and hypertrophy is because of afterload increase, or we call increase in pulmonary pressure. So right ventricular hypertrophy and right ventricular dilatation. Secondary to that, now right atrium will undergo hypertrophy, and you will have a symptom signs of congestive cardiac failure. Now a stage will come where the right ventricular pressure will be equal to LV pressure. The shunt will stop. This we call as Eisenmenger syndrome or Eisenmenger complex. Now further elevation of right ventricular pressure, now it will reverse back. Deoxy blood from RV will enter into LV. That will produce central cyanosis, hypoxic conditions, and you can have a paradoxical embolization from right side onto the systemic circulation. So this will be very typical. But when there is a left to right shunt, you can have a paradoxical embolization from LV going into right side, producing pulmonary embolism. So this will be the entire pathophysiology what can take place in a medium size to large size VSD. While in case of a Rogers defect, during ventricular systole, as the ventricle contracts, myocardium will contract, and in a presence of muscular defect, or we call Rogers defect, the defect will close during systole. So there will be very minimal flow. Usually they are asymptomatic, but murmur will be produced at the level of interventricular septum. But it will not be a pansystolic murmur. It will be a short systolic murmur, and that will be very characteristic in a case of a mild defect, or we call it the Rogers defect, or we call it a small defect, which is less than 5 millimeter. Between 5 to 15, it will be a moderate, and very large defect we call as a big defect or a large defect. So very easy to understand. Because of defect, blood will flow from LV to RV, increase volume overload. Because of increased volume overload, now blood will go more to the lung. All that blood will be getting oxygenated. That oxygenated blood will come to LA. That will result into left atrial enlargement and left atrial hypertrophy. More blood will come to LV. So you will have a LVH, dilatation plus hypertrophy. So you have got LA and LV being enlarged and dilated, and hypertrophy. All that blood from LV will be partially ejected into aorta, and major blood will go into RV because the resistance is less. So you will have a volume overload on RV. We have already explained you that because of volume overload, now there will be right ventricular dilatation and hypertrophy. RV pressure will be elevated because of pulmonary pressure elevation, and then there will be shunt will stop, no longer shunt, and now you will come across a stage where the shunt stops. You call that as Eisenmenger syndrome. Further elevation of pulmonary pressure will elevate the right ventricular pressure. Reversal will take place. Now it will be right to left shunt. We will call that Eisenmenger syndrome with reversal of the shunt, cyanosis, hypoxia. Later on, person can also develop clubbing. You will have a chance of development of a paradoxical embolization, blood clot or infective endocarditis emboli can go from right side into the left side and can produce systemic embolization. Because of RV pressure elevation, RA pressure is elevated and you will have increased pressure in superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, leading to symptom signs of congestive heart failure. So that will be the end stage where you will develop right ventricular hypertrophy, RV pressure elevation, increased pressure in superior vena cava as well as inferior vena cava, and symptom signs of congestive heart failure. So this will be the entire pathophysiology which will take place in presence of moderate to severe ventricular septal defect. Same thing is shown here. Blood will flow from LV into RV. More volume overload, RV dilatation plus hypertrophy, pulmonary congestion, pulmonary plethora, repeated respiratory tract infection, increase in pulmonary congestion and pulmonary hypertension. More blood comes to LA. LA gets enlarged, dilatation plus hypertrophy. LV gets more volume overload, so LV also undergoes hypertrophy with dilatation. So it is more of LV and LA which is dilated plus hypertrophy. And RV also undergoes hypertrophy with dilatation because of volume overload. Secondary to RVH, RV pressure elevation, now RA pressure is elevated, increased pressure in superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, leading to congestive cardiac failure. And less blood from LV will enter into aorta, leading to hypotension. Systemic circulation will be less, so it will lead to hypotension. So this will be the entire pathophysiology which will take place. And when the pressure in the RV becomes equal to LV pressure, shunt will stop. Further elevation, now reversal of the shunt will take place. So very peculiar. So reversal of the shunt, now you will have a right to left shunt. We'll call that as Eisenmenger syndrome. So Eisenmenger complex will take place and there will be reversal. Rogers defect will be usually asymptomatic, but mild to moderate variety, or we call moderate and severe variety, will have increased blood flow from LV to RV, leading to pulmonary congestion, secondary to pulmonary congestion, recurrent respiratory tract infection. Secondary to that, now person will have a decreased blood flow in systemic circulation, so failure to thrive, poor weight gain, feeding difficulty, easy fatigue, shortness of breath, sweating, etc. When there is a reversal of the shunt, now person will develop cyanosis. And if it is a large lesion, it will be early. You will have a soft murmur, P2 will be loud. Because of dilated pulmonary artery, recurrent laryngeal nerve may be paralyzed and you can have a hoarseness of voice. And also because of a big left atrial enlargement, you can have a pressure effect on recurrent laryngeal nerve. So depending upon the VSD size, usually we say that in a small or Rogers defect, usually it is asymptomatic. Murmur is very short, it is not a pansystolic murmur, it is a short systolic murmur. Pansystolic murmur will be very commonly audible in a presence of a large VSD and in case of a moderate VSD. So murmur will be present in a left parasternal region. It will be pansystolic murmur, very loud murmur, almost we call 6 by 6, and it will be radiated in a very large area. And once there is a reversal of the shunt, we call Eisenmenger complex, cyanosis, signs of hypoxia, clubbing, paradoxical embolization, symptom signs of congestive cardiac failure, etc. will be there. So Rogers defect is usually asymptomatic. Moderate and severe variety will be early symptomatic. Initial symptoms, repeated respiratory tract infections. Because of left atrial dilatation, atrial flutter fibrillation, thromboembolism. Once there is a reversal, cyanosis, congestive cardiac failure, hypoxia, clubbing, Infective endocarditis is very common. You will develop paradoxical embolization either because from infective endocarditis or from RV thrombi, retarded growths, cardiovascular system examination, LA, LV, dilated plus hypertrophy, pulmonary hypertension, then RVH, and then later on you will get a symptom signs of congestive cardiac failure with reversal of the shunt. So in a Eisenmenger syndrome, you will have a reversal of the shunt. So in a small VSD, usually asymptomatic, while moderate will be SOB, exercise intolerance, feeding difficulty, failure to thrive, frequent recurrent respiratory tract infection, forehead sweating, infective endocarditis, atrial flutter fibrillation, Eisenmenger syndromes, chest pain, palpitations, syncopal episodes, quite common. While Rogers is usually asymptomatic, at the maximum you hear a murmur. This already we have mentioned, so I am skipping over. Murmur is very frequently because of large VSD or a medium sized VSD. It will be a parasternal pansystolic murmur, hollow murmur, also described as a rumbling murmur. Grade wise, it is usually 6 by 6 in a large defects. Also in case of a Rogers defect, the murmur can be loud enough. It will be radiated in a very wide area. No change with respiration, Valsalva or different position. You can have a flow murmur at pulmonary valve because of increased blood flow from RV into pulmonary circulation, producing ejection systolic murmur, which is we call as a flow murmur. Also, you will have a diastolic flow murmur, which will be MDM at the level of mitral valve because of increased blood flow from LA into LV. So this will be all the finding which you can come across, different types of murmur in VSD. So this is a typical murmur of VSD, we call as a pansystolic murmur. In Rogers defect, it will be a early systolic murmur. In VSD with a mild pulmonary stenosis, again you will have a long systolic but split second sound. In VSD with severe pulmonary stenosis, split second sound and P2 will become less prominent. While VSD with Eisenmenger, now that shunt has stopped. Now because shunt has stopped, now there will be increased blood flow across the pulmonary valve, and that will be producing what we call as a early diastolic murmur because of PR, pulmonary regurgitation. And whenever there is an VSD with AR, you will have an early diastolic murmur at aortic valve. So these are the different murmurs which you can see depending upon what stage you are auscultating. I have already mentioned regarding an Eisenmenger complex, reversal of the shunt. Now blood will flow from RV into LV. You will have bidirectional shunt, cyanosis, hypoxia, clubbing, paradoxical embolization will be quite common. We already mentioned that in presence of atrioventricular defect, there is a combined defect like ASD with VSD, and depending upon the severity, you will have symptom signs. Heart failure develops very early because of two things together, and also there will be defect in a different valvular structure, particularly mitral valve is more common, and that will produce defective mitral valve, and that can have a pansystolic murmur even at mitral valvular area. And this will be typical picture, what we call as a snowman appearance or figure 8 appearance. X-ray chest will show you big LV, dilated LA. RV will be mildly enlarged and hypertrophic. There will be pulmonary congestion in an early stage. And then in a late stage, now you will see symptom signs of congestive cardiac failure in the form of a bilateral hydrothorax. ECG will show you LVH, LAE and RVH, but LV will be more than RV. Because of LAE, atrial flutter fibrillation is quite common. Echocardiography will show you site, size, number, type, pressure gradients, even if there is a reversal of the shunt. presence of infective endocarditis, thrombus formation in LA, if there is any associated valvular defect, or if there is any atrioventricular septal defect, ASVSD, AS, atrioventricular septal, AVSD, atrioventricular septal defect can be also identified. You can identify right ventricular pressure, reversal you can pick up, as well as ventricular size, ventricular pressure, all can be easily identified by good echo with Doppler. To find out the pressure changes and direction of the blood flow, etc., right heart and LV catheterization will be required. So we already told you, on an X-ray you will have a big LV, LA and RVH, increased pulmonary vascular congestion. ECG will show you biventricular hypertrophy where LV will be more than RV. Echocardiography, I have already mentioned that you can demonstrate a big LV, big LA, RVH, infective endocarditis, presence of thrombus in LA, pressure changes, pressure gradients, other valvular defects, other congenital defects which are sometimes associated with VSD, number, size, types, etc. can be also detected. So these are X-ray changes. You can see a big LV. This is LV on barium. So you can demonstrate LV plus LA also. LA can also produce indentation on a barium. So try to identify that by doing a radiological study. CAT scan usually not required unless you are planning for surgery. Ultrasound is enough. Angiography, CT and MRI, combination of MRI angio or CT angio is usually required if you want to plan out for surgery and find out the associated defects, coronary artery blood flow, etc. So you will have a more of LVH with RV, so we call BVH. You will have a typical finding. Echo will give you a very good idea regarding the site, size, number of VSD. Catheterization will give you idea regarding a pressure studies. You will have to differentiate from ASD, PDA and other defects. Once you make the diagnosis, again in a small defect, usually they close spontaneously, no medication, no surgery required. By and large, spontaneous closure is there. In a moderate to large also, sometimes it closes in 15 to 20%. But in presence of congestive heart failure, you will have to treat congestive heart failure and then decide for a repair. Intervention can be there. If there is a decompensated congestive heart failure, treatment of congestive heart failure with intervention. You can have a compensated congestive heart failure, and in that particular condition, depending upon the pressure gradient, etc., you can decide when to do a surgery. So if there is a failure of medical therapy, you will have to go for a surgery at an early stage. We have already told you it can close spontaneously. For prevention of infective endocarditis, good dental hygiene and prophylactic antibiotic is required, and then you can go for a surgical closure. Surgical closure can be again two, one open and second is by catheter. So this is open, you put a patch and have a sutures, that is called open, and cardiac catheterization and closure can be done, and that you can use this. Transpulmonary or right atrial approach or transaortic approach or right ventricular approach or left ventricular approach, whichever approach you go for. This is what we call the Dacron flap, and you can have a open surgery and close it. or you can go for what we call as catheter closure, and you use this material. As far as complication is concerned, repeated respiratory tract infection, pulmonary hypertension, retarded growth, then person can go into reversal, we call as Eisenmenger. Sorry, this spelling E, it should be E, where person will now start developing cyanosis with congestive cardiac failure, paradoxical embolization, infective endocarditis, thromboembolism with paradoxical embolization. Atrial flutter fibrillation is common because of big ALA, dilated ALA, and that can end up with thrombosis and thromboembolism. By and large, it is always systemic, but it can also go from a LA, LV into right side and pulmonary, and that is also paradoxical embolization. You can have a complete heart block also once in a while, not very common. Retarded growth. You can have an abnormal congenital heart disease associated with VSD, like single ventricle, right ventricular outlet obstructions. Or you can have an aortic regurgitation, aortic valve defects, mitral valve defects, endocardial cushion defects. These can be associated conditions. So I end my lecture here. I hope this lecture will be very helpful to you. We'll be meeting you again in the next lecture that will be on a patent ductus arteriosus.